Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Joseph Mbele. I have introduced myself many times, but let me just say again, I'm a Tanzanian, and I teach here at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. Before this, I taught at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. I taught from 1976 in the literature department, and I came here to St. Olaf College in 1991 in the English department. I am speaking as an individual. I'm speaking for myself. I do not represent any institution. My YouTube channel is a space for me to just air my views and engage in conversation with people who are interested in what I'm saying. So today I'm addressing again the issue of African Americans moving to Africa. It's a big movement of African Americans to countries such as Ghana, Gambia, Senegal, Rwanda, Tanzania, South Africa, and so on. So there are many issues that come with that, and I've been trying to address some of these issues. Several days ago, I came up with the topic of the right of African Americans to return to Africa. I was explaining that all along, for many months, I've been thinking about this topic, and I've been arguing that African Americans have the right to return to Africa on the grounds that they were taken out of there against their will. So for a long time, that was my position. I fully supported the idea that African Americans have the right to return to Africa. Now, the fact that I have a particular position, the fact that I have a particular idea, does not mean that that idea has to remain the same. Again, doesn't mean that that idea is the truth. As somebody who likes to think about issues, as somebody who keeps learning, I read a lot, I listen to people, I think about my beliefs. I have found myself beginning to raise questions, and that's not only legitimate, but I think it's necessary. We shouldn't be idle, we shouldn't be complacent. Simply because we believe something doesn't mean we should not, listen to other views. It doesn't mean we should not keep learning. And so I have questions now, and I think I have a right to articulate those questions for myself, as well as for people like me who are open-minded, and they believe, in the necessity of keeping the search for knowledge, keeping it alive, keeping the search for knowledge alive. So, yeah, I'm in the process of rethinking my views. So today I want to say this. Yes, the African Americans have a right to return to Africa, but the question is where? Where? Africa is a huge continent. And not all African societies participated in the slave trade. even in those places where slave trade went on, it was only certain people who engaged in the trade. Only certain people, maybe some chief somewhere who collaborated with the foreign slave hunters, but the majority of the population were not involved. In fact, there were many Africans who were themselves enslaved on the continent. There was slavery on the African continent. There were slaves within the African populations. Of course, the form of slavery that existed in Africa is not the same as what existed in the Americas. We need to make that distinction. And historians have written about this. There were slaves in Africa, again, depending on the place, but oftentimes these were more like domestic servants. They had rights. They could actually get out of their condition and become free. They could rise in the social hierarchy from being a slave to being an important member of the society, occupying leadership positions, for example. It was fluid. It was not the kind of brutal, horrible experience that, slavery in the Americas was. So still, there were Africans, many Africans who were slaves within Africa itself. So we need to think a bit more deeply about these issues. And if an African American does a DNA test and discovers that they came from, say, Ghana, I would say that person has a claim to being from that part of Africa, and I think I will defend their right to return there if they want to return. That kind of African American has an automatic right. I have seen photos of African Americans who found out their DNA, and then they traveled to the place where they came from, and I have seen photos of the local Africans there welcoming these people as their long-lost relatives coming home. Those photos are very moving, and I think that's the kind of situation I'm talking about. But I don't think it's something I would easily accept, that say an African American, comes to my village in southern Tanzania and saying they have the right to be there, to return their right. I don't know. And maybe their DNA, leads them to some other part of Africa, Senegal, for example. Does that person have a right to go live in Somalia or Ethiopia or Zimbabwe? I don't think so. It's not a right. I think if they are going someplace like that, they need to know that we have laws in Africa. There are international conventions about migrations. You can apply to be a citizen of another country. You follow the procedures. Countries have different rules. You can acquire citizenship in foreign countries. There are Africans who come to the USA. They apply for citizenship. They fulfill the requirements. They become citizens. I am not a citizen of the US. I am a citizen of Tanzania. I have never had the intention and I don't think I will ever want to change my citizenship. But I'm talking about those Africans who decide to go become citizens in other countries, you know, Germany, you know, Australia, the USA, Brazil. You can go there and apply for citizenship, but it's not a right. So I think that applies to African Americans as well. It's a different world now. And at the time when Africans were taken out of Africa as slaves, we didn't have these countries that we know today, you know, Rwanda, Burundi, Zimbabwe, Burkina Faso. It was not that kind of reality. Yes, we can say they were taken out of Africa, but Africa has changed, and now we have specific countries with specific laws and all that. I don't have the right to go settle in Nigeria, for example. I'm an African. I don't have the right to come to the USA. It's a different world. I certainly think African Americans are welcome in Africa. I think at the back of my mind, I understand why African Americans will say, I was taken from Africa against my will, or my ancestors were taken from Africa against my will. There's some kind of emotional thing that comes into the picture, and that makes me see the logic, if I may use that word. I'll be very inclined to go along with that idea that African Americans should be able to come and settle anywhere in Africa. They should follow their laws, but they should probably not insist that they have a right. I would accept the idea of a right if they did the DNA test and discovered they belong somewhere. I would go along with the idea that that confers some right, or a right, or the right for them to return there. So it's a complicated issue. It's a complicated issue, and I want us to face that complexity and not rush to judgments. Some people get very angry when they hear conversations like this. They don't want to question. They don't want to raise issues about things that they believe are true. And yet what I'm saying is things are complicated. And that's one thing that makes the United States a rather difficult place. There are certain things which people just accept, and it's dangerous to raise issues. You know, you can be labeled. You know, if you raise issues about, say, what the Israeli government is doing, just raising issues so we can think about those issues, you can be branded anti-Semitic. And that's horrible. You don't want to be branded anti-Semitic. All you do is raise questions. We used to do this at the University of Dar es Salaam in my country when I was growing up. We were a very free society. Intellectual discussions were welcome. We were ready to discuss anything, raise questions. Here in the USA, if somebody raises certain questions about, say, black people, and that person is a white person, it's very easy that they find themselves labeled racist. That's the United States. Or if somebody wants to discuss certain issues connected with their gender, sexuality, things like that, they easily get branded homophobic. So there are these types of labels which are regularly used here in the US which constrain thinking, they constrain debate, and in fact, for asking whether African Americans have a right to return to Africa, when I stated that I'm beginning to rethink my previous beliefs, I was beginning to have second thoughts, and I was just trying to articulate those second thoughts, whether African Americans have a right or the right to return to Africa. Somebody said, I hate African Americans. It was very, very strange. I've never harbored any hatred. On the contrary, I have sought to connect with African Americans, and I'm very happy with my relationship with African Americans here in Minnesota. I belong to some organizations. They love my work. They love hearing me speak about Africa, and they can see I'm very respectful, and I like, connecting with them. But because I was raising some questions, somebody came up with the idea that I hate African Americans. It's a very scary country in some ways. It's a very scary country. As I say, I was raised in Tanzania, and the freedom there, the freedom to debate issues, the freedom to raise questions, the freedom to hear, or rather articulate views that were unconventional, as long as you were focusing on arguing and arguing and arguing. In fact, a few days ago, I was very happy to read that the controversial philosopher Peter Singer, was invited to a discussion at the University of Dar es Salaam, and things just went well. People appreciated, the conversation. The University of Dar es Salaam did that, and that's the University of Dar es Salaam that I knew when I was studying there from 1973 and teaching there from 1976. We used to invite people of all political viewpoints, all ideologies, from the radical left to, the far right. I remember, for example, we used to have a lot of people, radical left-wing speakers coming to have debates, but we also had people who articulated different views, capitalistic views. We even invited somebody from South Africa, the leader, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Chief Buthelezi. He came to the University of Dar es Salaam, and it was in the days of apartheid. And he came, he gave a speech at the University of Dar es Salaam. I was there, and he was way, way on the other side. We were a country that staunchly supported the liberation movement of South Africa. We were a left-wing country, basically. And the University of Dar es Salaam was a hotbed of revolutionary thinking. But we invited people like Buthelezi, and he underwent such questioning, so much questioning, he actually suddenly left the stage and went out of the room, went out of the auditorium. But we give space for conversations like this, and that's how I was raised. So I have issues with some of the things I'm seeing here in the USA in terms of a certain kind of intolerance of intellectual diversity. And it comes out even on my channel here, people coming out and, saying things which clearly impede free flow of ideas, free exchange of ideas. And I would like my channel to be a place where we argue and we disagree respectfully. I make my point, I'm honest, you make your point, you are honest, and we don't have to brand each other, this way or that way. The right to think, the right to change our minds should be guaranteed, and I definitely respect that. So I will continue raising this issue of African Americans going to Africa so we can think more broadly. But again, I definitely think African Americans are welcome to Africa. They should be welcome, just like any other human being is welcome. But what I'm saying is, with African Americans, there is this extra thing which is very emotional. I will be inclined to support an African American who wants to become a Tanzanian, for example, for these emotional reasons of the history of the slave trade. There's that added advantage, I would say, for African Americans. But I don't think it's a right, automatically like that. They need to come, follow the laws, immigration laws, and they should be able to become citizens like everybody else. But I'll be more favorably inclined to accept them because they bring up this whole idea of having been taken out of against their will. So anyway, that's it for today. I hope you will have a lot to talk about based on what I've said. Feel free and have a nice day.